going on? My name's Matt Parker and today it is my absolute pleasure to be reviewing this 1978 Gibson RD Artist Bass from my friends at Vintage Bass Room. Before we dive into the RD bass today, please take a moment to like and subscribe as it really helps me grow the channel. Right, let's get back to the video. Now, the RD bass is a bit of an oddball from the Gibson lineup. It only had a very short model run between 1977 and 1982 when it was quietly cancelled and removed from the catalogue. Designs for the RD series started in 1975 and the basses came to market in 1977. The RD was the project child of Bruce Boland, head of R&D at Gibson during the Norlin era. Now, during this period, Norlin, which was the parent company of Gibson, actually also owned Moog synthesizers. So, interestingly, Bob Moog designed the electronics for this bass. This is particularly interesting because this is one of the first Gibson active basses. Designed in the 70s when brands like Music Man and Alembic were bringing active circuitry on board, Gibson wanted to get involved with this market. As such, what that means is that we have a pair of active humbuckers, we've got a 2-band EQ with cut and boost functionality, 2 master volumes for each pickup, and then moving the bass to here, we've got pickup selection, so neck, both on, and bridge. And then here we have what was called the bright switch, neutral, and then compression and enhance, which is part of the legendary Moog active circuit in these basses. Now, when they were designing this bass, Gibson really thought it was going to be a big seller, and as such, they got John Entwistle of The Who involved, and this was supposedly going to be his signature bass. However, by 1979, he had distanced himself from the project. Although it never sold in huge numbers, in 1978 and 1979, this was actually Gibson's best-selling bass and outsold the Ripper. Now we've got a brief history of the RD series out of the way, let's look at some of the specs. The first thing you'll notice is this really interesting asymmetrical offset shape. It features a solid maple body, and then flipping it round, we can see that it's got a set neck. Obviously this one has some finish, but it's a 3-piece maple neck, and spinning it round, you can see that it also features a really nice ebony fingerboard. Now, interestingly, the RD also features a very slightly longer than normal scale. It's a 34.5-inch scale length, which is a marked departure from a lot of the Gibson basses of the era. In classic 70s Gibson fashion, it does include a range of features which seem like a bit of an amalgamation of various products they sold at the time. So it features a maple body, very similar to the Ripper and Grabber. Flipping it over, we can see it's got a set neck, which would be similar to something like an Explorer or a Flying V bass. But then it's also a 3-piece maple neck on this example. Moving it over to the back of the headstock, we can see it's got this really prominent volute as well, which was kind of like a really key part of like Norlin's neck heritage, I guess, with their Gibson era. The bass features 20 frets and it's got actually really good upper fret access. It's quite comfy to play up that high if you are someone who likes to kind of like do a bit of lead bass line. Moving down to the bridge, we can see this particular version has a hip shot replacement, although it would have had a traditional 3-point bridge system as to be expected on a lot of these 70s era Gibsons. You'll notice that it has the option for string through stringing should you wish to do so. Now, spinning the bass around, you can see it's got this absolutely massive backplate on it, and that is to hide all of the really interesting Moog circuitry. It's also secondarily to help provide a bit of weight relief because this bass is a bit of a whopper. Now, because it's such a big body, such a long neck, and the bridge is quite far forward, this bass is quite long and quite heavy. It comes in at nearly 1.3 meters long, and it's certainly feels like it's over 10 pounds, even though, you know, it's not a massively deep body. But it's kind of one of those things, it feels very much like a Thunderbird in terms of weight, and I would say it balances better than the Thunderbird for sure. Moving to the headstock, you can see it's got that classic Gibson design. This particular one has the Artist RD inlay in the top, and moving it over to the back, you can see it's got a 2+2 headstock design with Schala tuners, which would have come standard with this instrument. The neck feels very comfortable for me, but I like quite round, thick profiles. It's certainly not what you would consider like a modern C. It feels almost like a fat D, I would say. It feels very similar to the Rippers and Grabbers that I've played. It's a 40mm nut width, which is very similar to a lot of Gibsons, and front to back, my vernier calipers bring it in at 22mm on the first fret. Right, you've probably had enough of me waffling on about this pretty killer rock and roll bass. So let's hear some tones. So there we have it, the 1978 Gibson RD Artist Bass. I think this is a really cool bass. It certainly leans into that kind of like rock and roll, grungy, punky kind of vibe really well. It's got a really pleasing mid-range and kind of like low mid character, which means that it really punches through a mix and sits well alongside a drummer. Although it was never a huge seller for Gibson and was quite quickly discontinued, the RD bass has found a bit of a cult following in bands such as Nirvana, where Chris Novoselic used an RD bass to track most of Nevermind. This was brought home when in 2018 Gibson unveiled the Chris Novoselic RD bass. One of the only things I would say if you were looking at one of these is just to take into consideration the weight again. I feel like a broken record sometimes when I say this, but I really feel like 70s basses in particular kind of were pushing the limits of what was possible to make a bass weigh. I want to say a huge thank you to my friends at Vintage Bass Room for sending this over to check out. As always, please go and check out their website. You can see some killer basses, and this one is currently available if you think it's something you might want to take home with you. Also, please remember to like and subscribe. It really helps me grow this channel, and it means that I can keep doing these awesome review videos for you guys. As always, I've been Matt Parker. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.